Hi, everybody. I'm so glad you're here. This is insane. If you told me that this is how I was going to talk to 500 of you all across the country in the month of April, I would have laughed in your face. But here we are, and I'm so glad that we're here. I know some of you know who I am and some of you do not, so I'm going to cover that. But before we get in, a couple of quick logistics, okay? One, I see you writing into the chat. I love it. I'm excited about it. I can't read your chat and talk at the same time. I am impressive, but I'm not that impressive. So I want you to keep chatting me. I'm just going to read them later, and then we'll talk other places. So I cannot, that is not a place where we can engage, but you should have a place where you can do Q&A. So as we go through a bunch of stuff tonight, I want you to ask questions. There's going to be a little bit of time at the end for us to do some Q&A and for me to answer those questions directly. So we're going to talk a lot about sisterhood tonight, and I want you to ask me questions about how to apply it in your real world, about some sisterhood situations in your life. There is not a bad question or a dumb question, and I ain't got nothing but time tonight. So you toss those questions in there and we'll answer as much of them at the end as we possibly can, okay? I'm also gonna show you some slides every once in a while because, well, I've got some embarrassing pictures of me from college. How dare I deprive you of those things? Also pictures of some dogs, because that's how I roll. And I think it'll be helpful just to see a couple visuals. There's also a couple slides in here with words on them. I've already said this before, I'm saying it again. Please feel free to take pictures of tonight's presentation or videos of tonight's presentations and toss them up on Instagram. Let's blow up Instagram with some sisterhood and help our sisters who couldn't be here tonight make this happen. Last thing I'm going to tell you before we dive all the way in is that if you had people who couldn't make it tonight, we're going to do another one of these on Tuesday of next week at 5 p.m. Eastern. The registration link is already live. I'm going to share it on social media and on my Instagram account tomorrow. So if you've got sisters who couldn't be here with us today, but you want them to enjoy our experience, go ahead and send them that link when we're done. So I am going to dive in, and I am going to put up my slides again because I'm very fancy, and I'm going to do that because Zoom is totally intuitive and not at all complicated, right? Right? Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Tina Van Steenbergen. Many of you have seen me speak before. Many of you have not. And this is the first time that you're experiencing all of me. I am much bigger than I look on your tiny little screen. So, okay, here's some information for you that I need to know about me. I'm a professional public speaker, okay? That is my full-time job. I travel the country and I talk to women. And I talk to women about why women need women and how to build actual friendships and relationships with one another. And my job is my favorite thing in the world to do. My job obviously now looks a little bit different than it used to. But I'm really excited that the internet has given us ways to still connect with one another because I love my work. And I'm good at it, which means if you're afraid this webinar is going to suck tonight, never fear, sis. I don't suck, okay? If you think this sucks, you might suck because I'm a ton of fun and I'm going to make sure that we have fun tonight. So I'm originally from St. Paul, Minnesota. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's my favorite place on earth. I know that I don't talk like I'm from Minnesota. That's on purpose. That is on purpose. A Minnesota accent is adorable, but difficult to listen to for long periods of time. I should have recorded my family's Easter Zoom for you to really get a hold of what that would feel like if we did that the whole time. So I'm not going to do that to you, but it is my favorite place on earth. The next thing I need to know about me is that I'm aggressively happily married to the love of my life. That's James. He and I live together here in Minneapolis. We are both professional public speakers, believe it or not. We own our own business and travel the country and talk to college students. And it's amazing. And he's my favorite person on earth and is actually currently recording a podcast on the other side of the apartment. Otherwise, he'd probably be here hanging out with us because he loves him some sisterhood. I want to be Lizzo when I grow up. That's important for you to know of me. First of all, she's a Minneapolis kid. She's not born here, but she spent a lot of her life here. So we claim her. I love me some Lizzo. Lizzo doesn't give a shit what you think about her. And I know she's got days where she does. I'm sure she does. But for the most part, like, Lizzo doesn't care what you think about her. Lizzo is unapologetically Lizzo. And I think that's badass. And when I get to talk to you, it's where I get to be unapologetically Tina. So I'm loud, I'm silly, I'm gonna curse, I'm gonna try to make you laugh a couple times, even though I can't hear your laughter. I'm just choosing to trust and believe that laughter is happening because I'm also pretty sure I'm funny. So I'm assuming you're laughing at me right now. In my brain, you're laughing at me right now, and that is good enough for me. Macaroni and cheese is my favorite food. I'm obsessed with it. Pretty sure I'm having lobster mac and cheese for dinner tonight from the restaurant across the street, and I'm excited about it. And my dog is my favorite thing on the planet. This is Sherry. She's the best. This is Sherry. She's amazing. This is Sherry. She's a model. Also, normally people can't do that. I don't know. You're not going to be able to see her, but she's like right there. Normally I just show you pictures from very far away, but she's like right there. She's not going to come say hi to us. She's sleeping. Are any of you learning how much your pets sleep? She sleeps a lot. It's very impressive. Here's the only other thing you need to know about me that matters a lot in this context. I'm a sorority woman. I'm a proud member of Alpha Gamma Delta. Shout out to my squirrel sisters. Yes, our mascot is the squirrel. Yeah, yep. I can see your faces, right? I mean, I can't, but I can. And your pity is appropriate. But we take our squirrel pride seriously. So I am a sorority woman by, it's one of the coolest choices I've ever made in my life. And I'm really grateful that I let sorority happen to me. I am going to stop sharing my screen now so that I can look at you. Boop. For many of you, going to college and joining a sorority was something you were already going to do. Like some of you picked campuses because you wanted to join a sorority community and you were looking for a very traditional sorority experience. Some of you were not looking for a sorority experience and still aren't quite sure how you managed to find your way in a sorority. I am one of those humans. I'm not quite sure how I managed to find my way to a sorority because I was never, ever going to join a sorority. I'm a guy's girl. I'm a tomboy. And men have been my best friends my entire life. As you just saw on the screen before, I had 5 bridesmen on the day that I got married. I had a man of honor in my wedding because my best friend's a dude. My roommates have been dudes my entire life. All my friends are men. But that wasn't even the real reason. I'm a first generation college student. And on the outside looking in, sorority looked like a lot, y'all. On the outside looking in, sorority to people who have never in their life experienced sorority can look like quite a bit. Here's your proof of that. Those are my bridesmen. Aren't they adorable? On the outside looking in, sorority looks a lot like this or like this. These women are beautiful. That's just a lot of lavender for me. It's just a lot of lavender, a lot of lady hugs for an 18-year-old Tina. It didn't make sense to me. Sorority looks a lot like this to people doing some Google image searches. Sorority looks a lot like this. I don't run. And certainly not with that much joy on my face. No, ma'am. Sorority looks a lot like this. This is one of my favorite pictures that I found on the internet. And for some people, sorority looks a lot like this or a lot like this. And there's no judgment if that's what your sorority experience looked like. I think if that's what your sorority experience looked like, listen, part of my sorority experience looked like a lot of these photos. But it didn't help me understand what I was getting myself into. So then even by the time I got into it, I got the wind knocked out of me by what sorority actually was for me, by how much I was missing out on before sorority happened to my life. I told you I've been friends with men my whole life. So it wasn't until I let sorority happen to me that I learned how it feels to have women in your world who love you. Even when you're not wearing makeup. They don't care because they love you anyway. It wasn't until I joined a sorority that I knew what it felt like to have a real big sister. Like a woman whose job it is to love you. Just because. It wasn't until I joined a sorority that I knew what it felt like to have women to go out with, to spend time with, to go on crazy adventures with, to laugh until you almost pee your pants, to be silly and fun, to find puppies in a back alleyway, to go to German Fest, because why not, to be together. It wasn't until I found sorority that I learned how powerful women's friendship can be. Joining my sorority changed my life. And not like, oh my God, it like changed my life. Not like a frappuccino. It just genuinely changed everything about my world. I don't know if I've ever been more grateful for what sorority has done for me. And as beautiful and wonderful as all these images are, they're also a little sad to see right now. Because right now in our world, sorority doesn't look like this. Sisterhood doesn't look like this right now. don't know about y'all, but looking at these photos and when I watch TV, when I see people touching each other, in my brain, I'm immediately like, why are you touching each other? Stop. Go wash your hands. Because our world is different. Our world has changed. For many of us now, sisterhood doesn't look like large gatherings. It doesn't look like chapter meetings. It doesn't look like sitting on couches and doing homework late at night. It doesn't look like parties. It doesn't look like laughing until you almost pee your pants. It looks like this. It looks like FaceTiming with your friends from far away, because that's all we can do. It looks a lot like this. It looks a lot like House Party and Zoom and any other face-to-face ways for us to try to connect with one another. Sometimes it feels like it looks like this. It feels like these women, these humans that we spent all of our time with, that were a part of our family, our social structure, our identity as sorority women, it feels like they were taken from us, right? It feels like they're gone now. It feels like it's over. But it's not over. Sisterhood's not over. Just like life is not over. It feels like it sometimes. And let me say this, you are allowed to feel cranky about the fact that you cannot sit on your couch with your sisters, okay? Let me go ahead and give you the permission you need to feel that way. You do not need to be excited about what is happening in our world. I don't expect that of any of you. I don't feel that way several days. I'm sad. I miss my friends. I miss my humans. I miss you. I should be in person with you right now. I should be able to hug you when we're done. It's okay to be sad about that. It's okay to feel a little hopeless and certainly a little less than whole. That might feel dramatic for some of us, but for some of us it does not. But sisterhood isn't over. It's just different. School isn't over. It's just different. Eating foods from restaurants isn't over. It's just different. Laundry's not over. It's just different. Never washed as many pairs of leggings in my entire life. I understand that it feels really far away and like we can't possibly manage sisterhood from a distance, but we can. We just have to find a way to do it differently. We just have to find a way to adapt, which frankly is what sororities have been doing for a very long time. So we are more than qualified to pull this off. What I'm not going to do tonight is teach you about all the ways you can use technology to be in touch with your sisters. I'm pretty sure you've gotten that lecture from a million different people, and they're all trying to help, and it is very helpful information, but I don't need to teach you about Zoom. You've arrived. You're here. You've made it. But I'm not going to teach you about all the different technology platforms. You should look into them. Zoom's meaningful. House Party is actually super fun. I spent a lot of my time FaceTiming. I spent a lot of my time on Instagram living with people. So you know about those things. What I'm going to do instead is to try to help you figure out, once you get on those platforms, what to do to make sure that sisterhood still happens. Yes, you can hang out. Yes, you can spend time together. Yes, you can study together. Yes, you can even drink or party together, but all those things feel a little bit differently. Those aren't the things I'm here to tell you about. I'm talking about the sisterhood, the life-changing power of women's friendships part. I want to help you use all of those crazy online platforms to continue to feel important and valued and loved, and to continue to make the women in your life feel important and valued and loved. Remember, as we keep going through this, you can keep tossing things in the chat. Please keep using the Q&A. I want to answer your questions. So toss them in there and we'll make sure there's time at the end. To teach you about how to make sisterhood happen in the world that feels so different and crazy right now, I'm going to tell you some stories about some women in my life. If you've seen me speak before, you might have heard bits and pieces or parts of these stories before, but I promise some of the content's going to be a little different, so stick with me. But I want to tell you about some of the amazing women I've been blessed to be loved by and how they've made me feel all of those things we just talked about, and how I think we can take a page out of their book and do that for one another. So we're going to start, as we always do, with the one and only Ashley Dobbins, okay? This is my friend Ashley Dobbins. She is one of the first women that I let myself be friends with ever in my life. She does speech therapy for elementary school kids, and she lives in suburban Illinois. She's just one of the best people I know. But when I first met her, do you ever meet somebody, maybe even in recruitment, do you meet somebody and you're like, this chick's weird? And then turns out you're really great friends later in life. This is what happens with me and Dobbins. The only reason Dobbins and I ever met is because we have the same work study job. We worked in the same office on campus, and that's the only thing that we had in common. Because Dobbins was then, is still now, the most chill, relaxed, calm human I have ever met in my life. I am none of those words. None of those words. I'm not calm. I've been trying to be chill since I was 16 years old. It's not working. I'm not chill. I'm emotional, and I'm dramatic, and I'm extra AF. And that is who I am. And that was genuinely true when I met Dobbins, and maybe even more so than normal, because when I met Dobbins, I had just moved away from Minnesota for the first time in my life. I moved to a brand new place where I didn't know anybody. And on top of that, when I moved away from Minnesota, I broke up with the boy I'd been dating for 7 years. Yeah, these were dark times. Like, can't hold it together, sobbing on my way to work. Dark times. And like, I'm not a cute crier. It's just like sobs, like it's a mess. And I would cry on my way to work every day, and feeling very alone, didn't know anybody, didn't know who to talk to about it. And I would get to work, and you can't walk into work a weeping hot mess, especially not, your first week on the job. So I would get to work and calm myself down, like do like those pregnancy breaths, like, and then I would get it together, and I'd walk in the door, and Dobbins would be there every day. And she would just look at me and be like, hey girl, what's up? That's what my face looked like. And I would lie to her face and say, oh my gosh, I'm good. And then go cry at my desk in the corner. I'm sure very sneakily. I was not okay. No part of me was okay. But I didn't know who to talk to about it. I didn't know who to trust. Trusting women is hard. Trusting brand new women you don't know that are your colleagues is hard. So I did what most of us do when we get asked that question. I lied. I said, oh, I'm good. I went and sat at my desk. And Dobbins and I did this little dance for about 5 days in a row. And on the 5th day, it was a Friday, I said, no, I'm fine. And then went and cried at my desk. And then she came over to me. And she like pulled her chair over. It's like making this screeching noise as she's coming over to me. And then she just sits down right next to me, and she looks at me. She's like, how are you? My dumb ass is still trying to pretend like I'm cool. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm so good. I'm so good. How are you? And she looked me right in the eyes and said, how are you actually doing? She was the first person to ask me that. Maybe in my life, she was the first person to ask me that question. Like, she sat down and looked me in the eyes and asked me in a way that made me feel like she genuinely wanted to know the answer. We get asked, how are you, so often that we don't even think about answering anymore. We just say good or fine or some other sort of ridiculous catchphrase like living the dream. And that's it. We don't actually take it for what it is, which is somebody asking you how you're doing, how you're surviving, how you're coping. We just say good and move on. Until that moment, for me, that was all I did when somebody said, how are you? Until that moment when somebody taught me how powerful it is when you can feel someone care about you in a question. That question took two very different strangers and turned them into two women who grew to need each other desperately, who got to be in each other's weddings, who got to, I don't have children, but I've met her children, who got to go to Snoop Dogg concerts together. Yes, this photo was taken at a Snoop Dogg concert. Here's the point, okay? I think there's two ways to look at what happened with Dobbins. I think there's two ways to apply it to what we've got going on in our world right now, right? First of all, I want you to ask this question more often, okay? I want you to ask the question, how are you actually doing, more often? And I want you to mean it. I want you to show up for your sisters, and I want you to ask them, how are they doing? And then when they brush you off and say, oh my God, I'm so good, I want you to call out their lie, and I want you to ask them again. Because here's the best part, folks. Nobody's good right now. Nobody feels great about life. Like, this is stressful and hard and emotionally challenging and overwhelming and confusing. We are anything but good right now. Even if today is 6 times better than you felt yesterday, we're still not yet at good. Which also means we all get to get a little bit more permission to answer that question more honestly than we're used to. Because nobody's good. Which also means nobody expects you to be good. You're allowed to be overwhelmed or sad or finally having a joyful day or experiencing some sunshine that makes you happy. We got to cut the I'm goods out of the way and start to build real conversations on that question. How are you doing? We now get to answer more honestly. And you also get to give your sisters permission to answer more honestly. So I want you to ask that question more frequently, okay? But here's the other big difference, okay? Here's the other big lesson to take away from that story. Remember I told you Dobbins and I didn't have anything in common, especially because I was going through like the worst breakup of my life at that point. And Dobbins was like the most thrilled person to be single I've ever met in my life. Like, the woman lived to be single. She left it. She had so much fun. She could not wait to prove to me that being single was amazing after I got out of this ridiculously long relationship. She was so excited because she loved being single. So not only did we not have anything in common, but we were living very different lives. We were experiencing very different things. And she still took the time to listen to me talk about that guy. Did she understand what I was going through? No, she'd never been in a serious relationship. Did she have this like huge amount of empathy because she at one point in her life, like, no. And what I was experiencing in my life wasn't remotely connected to the way that she lived her life, but she listened to me anyway. Here's why this matters. Your sisters are going through some stuff right now. You might be going through some stuff right now. And there are people in your world who don't understand. There are people in your world who do not understand how much you and your family are struggling right now. There are sisters in your chapter who are afraid that nobody in their sorority is going to understand how much they are struggling right now. But what I think I learned from Dobbins, what I have learned every time she and I have spent time together, is that you don't actually have to understand to be there for her. You don't have to understand to be there. Somebody told us at one point that empathy meant I understand how you feel. That's not what empathy is. Empathy is I hear what you feel and I can make that make sense in my body and in my brain. I can imagine what it would feel like to feel that way, even if I've never been there. So even if you are somebody who is not being at all financially harmed by this whole mess and you have sisters who really are, you can still be there for them. You don't have to be going through what they're going through to show up for them. And if you are one of the sisters who's having struggles in all of this mess, your sisters don't need to understand your struggle to be there for you. Sometimes we just have to let them. You don't have to understand what somebody's going through to be there for them. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Hang on real quick. I'm going to come back and talk to you for a minute. I think when we use these apps to connect, I think it's meaningful to cut the bullshit and get to the real point. The bullshit still matters. It's still fun. Are you folding laundry? What did you eat today? Like, I don't want you to not talk about fun stuff. I don't want you to not do what you normally do in your life, in the dining hall, in the chapter house. I don't want you to not do those things. I want you to live your life as normally as humanly possible. But I also want you to get to the real stuff faster because everybody is hurting right now. And I think when we show up for each other, we do what sorority it was designed to do. We do sisterhood. The next woman in my life that I want to talk to you about, this is so weird. I normally make you have a conversation with your friends right now, but many of you are sitting in a room by yourself, so I can't do that. So I'm just going to power through. The next woman I want to talk to you about is my friend Elizabeth. This picture was not taken at a Snoop Dogg concert, but yes, we are in the bathroom of a bar. Could you tell by my duck face? Elizabeth and I met years ago because she is the roommate of my best friend on earth, the man who was the man of honor at my wedding. Elizabeth has been Vince's roommate for years. Vince is also Elizabeth's best friend. So we met years ago. And Vince and I lived together for a long time. So Elizabeth would come visit us. And then I would go down and visit Elizabeth and Vincent. And so we spent a lot of time together over the years. We traveled together. We went to Iceland and Amsterdam. Like, Elizabeth and I go way back. But all of our friendship was built around Vincent. Vince was there for everything that we did together. And we got to a place where, like, I could sleep on her couch even if Vince didn't live there or wasn't there. But we weren't like close outside of the times we had to spend time together. You know what I mean? Those friends who you really love to hang out with and have a really great connection with, but you don't really talk to them outside of that. That's how I felt about me and Elizabeth. And then one time this spring, I think it was like January, she just picked up the phone and called me, and I was busy, and so I side-clicked it, and she sent me a text message to call me when you can. And I assumed Vince's birthday was coming in. So I assumed that she was calling me to talk about Vince's birthday. And were we going to do a present? Are we going to throw him a party? Like, what are we going to do for Vincent? Because everything in our relationship had been connected to Vincent. And I finally called her back, and she was like, how are you? And I started running through, did everything that I just told you not to do. Started running through how good I am, how busy I am. How are you? And she's like, well, I don't know. We got a lot going on at work. I'm feeling a little stressed. And I started processing what was happening at work. And that is when I learned that she didn't call me to talk to me about Vincent. She just called me to talk. She just called me to be my friend. And I was confused, but I enjoyed our conversation. We had a great talk. And we hung up and didn't talk for a while. And then another week went by, a week after that, and she called me again just to do the same thing. And then quarantine happened. And ever since quarantine has happened, I have received a meme on Instagram from Elizabeth once every 3 or 4 days that make me literally laugh out loud. I have received at least one phone call a week and one text a week from Elizabeth. Because she knows that for me, not being able to travel, not being able to do my job, and not being able to go hang out with people for my little extroverted heart is very complicated. It's a bummer. And she also knows that I own a small business and I can't now go do my job the way that I want to go do my job. So I've had some hard times in the quarantine, like we all have. And she cared. So she shows up across every social media platform several times a week. We've house partied, we've FaceTimed, we had brunch together. Like, she's just showing up for me just to make sure I'm okay and just to love me. Well, by the way, she's also an essential employee who has to go to work every single day. Like, girl's got enough going on in her life. And she chooses to check in on me over and over and over again. First of all, your people need you. They need you to reach out to them in several ways and across all forms of social media and the internet. Text messages, emails, memes, cards in the mail. I love a good handwritten card. Cards in the mail, FaceTimes, Hangouts, Zoom, happy hours. Like, your people need you. Your sisters need you. And since you can't pass each other on campus or sit next to each other in the library or have a meal together or go out together, doesn't mean that you can't connect. It just means we have to be way more intentional about the way that we do. And I want you to think about reaching out to your women all over the place. Of course, I want you to send them text messages and memes and send them those like weird up the nose selfies on Snapchat, just so that you can listen. You exchange those for 12 hours with your sisters. I'll call that a good sisterhood day, because it means you're reaching out to each other to care about each other, which is in some places sometimes the best we can do right now. But the real lesson for me in the Elizabeth friendship, really in my whole time with Elizabeth, is that it can be really hard to let new people into your world. It can be really hard to let new women into your world. whether they've been chapter sisters of yours for years and you just never really connected, or maybe they're new members this spring that really didn't get to have a new member period and we don't know them very well. It can feel really weird to get random phone calls or text messages from people we don't know super well. And it can feel even weirder to be the person making the phone calls, sending the text messages, sending the memes to people we don't know very well. It feels like you have to get to this certain like barrier of entry of your friendship in order to start sending things or being in more communication all the time. But I think all of those concerns come back to trust issues. We don't know what her motives are. We don't trust her. What's she trying to do? What's she trying to learn? She's your sorority sister. And more often than not, right now, she is just trying to survive, just like everybody else. That's most people's motive right now. And we have to try to find a way to let that love in, even if it feels a little extra. Just like we have to find a way to push that love out, even if it feels a little extra. When it comes to loving your sisters, I want you to be extra. I want you to be as extra as I am. I want you to aggressively love them out loud on a regular basis, on Instagram, on FaceTime, in text messages. I want you to be extra, because the love that we feel sitting next to someone on a couch is not love that we get to feel right now. So we need to find ways to make her feel it all the way on the other side of the country. I want you to be extra about the way that you love each other. I got women who showed up in quarantine in my life in a million different ways. And like all my little pockets of the women in my world that I love have shown up differently. There's little pockets of humans that I'm having different quarantined relationships with, right? I've got my friend Allison who lives out in California. And Allison really wanted to talk, but she specifically, we were texting back and forth and I was trying to schedule a Zoom time to hang out with her. And she's like, can we just not talk about COVID-19? I work in PR. I'm exhausted. I don't want to talk about it anymore. That was her one condition. So we got on FaceTime and we hung out for an hour and a half. Did we eventually talk about COVID? Of course we did, because I want to make sure she's okay at work. But we spent the first 45 minutes talking about the new furniture in her apartment and her earrings and what books we were reading and what we were watching on Netflix, and not talking about the coronavirus, because that's what she needed. And then sometimes I have FaceTime calls with other friends where all we talk about is the coronavirus, because we're all people professionally who have been very impacted by it and are trying to figure out how our businesses work outside of it. Carly, some of you have heard me talk about Carly before. She's one of my best friends in the world. Carly lives in Denver, and the only way that we've been able to hang out is we've been able to FaceTime. Sometimes on FaceTime, we just cry together about how stressful and overwhelming this is. She's an Aquarius. I'm a Pisces. We got a lot of feelings. So sometimes the feelings just need to come out. And we plan to have brunch together and like literally just have Bloody Marys on a Sunday morning at 9 a.m. and just enjoy being with one another and pretend we're sitting at a restaurant like we normally would if we were able to be together. And then I have 3 separate women who live in all different parts of the country who have decided that we're going to pen pal our way through this thing. So I've got Emily in North Carolina and Mel in Jersey and Megan in Iowa. Your card's coming to you, Megan. And we're just sending cards to each other and checking in on a text message occasionally just to pop some love in the mailbox, get those bills out of the way and just love each other on pen and paper like our founders would have, I guess. Jess and Aubrey are 2 of my best friends in the world. We FaceTime once a week. We've got a weekly meeting. We've switched the night several times, mostly because we're disorganized and time zones are hard. But we FaceTime once a week because that's what we need to do. That's helpful for us. That's the way that we've, as a group, have decided to adapt. My friend Betsy, who lives here in Minnesota, FaceTimes me and James every night. Every night. We tuck each other in. How was your day? How was our day? We'll tell you all about it. And just give updates about life because it makes this whole thing feel a little less lonely to add some of that routine to our world. And then I've got my friend Laura, who does a lot of work with me. And sometimes Laura and I are crushing brainstorming sessions, planning how we're going to help sorority women all over the country, even though I can't get on a plane to come to you. And sometimes we're aggressively yelling into FaceTime because Karen came to visit and it was disrespectful. Karen is a period, and she's the worst. There's no right way to sisterhood right now. There is no right way to do this. Just like there is no right way to survive quarantine right now, there is no right way to sisterhood, but there is a wrong way. And the only wrong way to sisterhood right now is to not. The only wrong way to sisterhood right now is to not. Is to feel like we shouldn't, is to be concerned that we're going to bother people, is to be afraid to put ourselves out there and be extra about it. I know it's different, but it's not over. And the only way to solidify that, the only way to prove that to ourselves and the rest of the world is to keep showing up for each other. That's all we can do right now. All we can do is to be there for each other. I know that this feels hard, but this is what sorority was designed to do. This is what sorority was designed for. This is the only reason sororities have ever been created. Maybe not quarantine this, but like this having a hard time as women in the world is what sororities were designed to do, because our sororities were created when our founders were getting treated like trash on a college campus. So they sat in a room together and they were like, yo, this sucks. You want to do it together? Cool. Ritual. That's it. That's the only reason we have ever been created. I know that we are not on a college campus right now, and we might not even be currently getting treated like trash. But we are struggling right now. People are going through it. And that's what sorority was designed to do, was to help women, to build a community of women together so that we could survive the hard stuff. Because some of y'all are going through it right now. Some of y'all are going through a breakup while quarantined from all of your friends who understand how you feel. And you don't feel like you have anyone to talk to about it. You can't even get a hug. Some of you are living with parents and family members who have lost their jobs and who are trying to figure out if the stimulus check is coming and if it's going to cover this and what they're going to do for work outside of it and whether or not we can pay the bills next month. But in organizations that cost so much money to be a part of, talking about money, especially when it's not there, can be really scary and hard. So we're not talking about it. Some of you are having gigantic disruptions to your school life. Like, you're supposed to be doing clinicals in nursing school right now, but you can't. So you're trying to do online nursing clinicals, and it's hard and confusing and challenging and stressful, and is making you wonder if you even want to be a nurse in the first place, even though you spent all these years studying to make it happen. Some of you are at home, trapped with people who you don't feel safe around because you have parents or family members or neighbors who are emotionally or physically abusive and make you feel unsafe. You've been taken away from your safe space and put in a space that's the exact opposite for you. Some of you have been struggling to be in a house with no schedule or routine because your disordered eating patterns are coming back. And all of those voices about what's happening to your body during quarantine are making you feel like trash about yourself. And you've got nowhere to go and no one to talk to about it. And some of you are actually losing people to this virus. You're losing families and friends and loved ones that we can't even be with. This is hard. It is scary. And our sisters need us right now. This is what sisterhood was designed to do. Do I think Emily Helen Butterfield, founder of Alpha Gamma Delta, yes, that's her real name. Do I think she sat around and was like, you know what, when there's a global pandemic and everyone has to be quarantined in their home for 6 straight weeks with no end in sight, we're going to be really glad we invented this sorority thing? No, I don't. But I think this is an opportunity for us to show up and to show the rest of the world what sorority was made to do. We were made for this. We were made to show up for one another in the darkest and hardest of times. We say over and over and over again that sorority is more than songs and t-shirts and parties. And this is our chance to prove that to the rest of the world and to prove that to ourselves, that we don't have to party together to love each other. We don't have to wear matching t-shirts on campus to feel connected. We can just love each other, or we can just be connected. Sororities are going to weather this storm because we're women and we're badass, and that's what women do. But my biggest hope for this whole thing is that we come out of it stronger than we went into it, because our sisterhood is put to the test and we crushed the shit out of that test. We were made for this. And I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you feel emboldened and empowered and motivated and inspired to connect with your sisters in really meaningful ways. I hope you got a little more permission than you had when you got here to connect from far apart and make sisterhood feel real again, because it is not over. We just have to do it differently.